Would, but first of all, let me say I must apologize for acting, thinking, treating you this way. Cause I've been acting like a woman. But you change the real, but you're rich, maybe that's the reason I'm if I get scared. Get it together and then we both know it like be sweet. It's like a big sweet. Better and down the border wouldn't that be sweet? Come help me out. I need to get me out of this joint. Come on, let's bounce. Counting on you to turn me around. Instead of clowning around, let's look for some common ground. So, baby, time's getting a little crazy. I've been getting a little lazy. Waiting you to come save me. I can see that you're angry by the way that you treat me. Hopefully you don't leave. Wanna take you with me. Get it together and then we both know it not be sweet. It's like a big sweet. Sweet.
Good morning, everybody. We're going to be getting started here in just a few minutes. So if you can please start finding your seats, we'll be getting started here in just a few minutes.
Get it together. Sweet.
I'm gonna need you to raise your glass. I don't care what you put in it. Here's the nights that you can't take back. We live hard, but we love to laugh. We all thought that we'd get rich fast. Hopped the plane out for greener grass. Found out the greenest cash don't compare to friends at last. See, we won't forget where we came from. The city won't change us. We beat to the same drum. No, we won't forget where we came from. The city can't change us. We beat to the same drum, the same drum. So here's to the cheap sunglasses, Red Bull and minivans, and people who had your back when the world didn't understand. See, we won't forget where we came from. The city won't change us. We beat to the same drum. No, we won't forget where we came from. The city can't change us. We beat to the same drum, the same drum.
Capital Analytics is a unique multimedia platform that specializes in business intelligence on dynamic markets through our digital and print reports, high-impact conferences and events, as well as top-level digital content through our video platform, Invest Insights. We are unique in our approach in that over a 6-month research period, we interview over 200 local CEOs to put together the information that becomes the contents of each 200-page annual report. Our platform takes a deep dive into the most important economic sectors to promote the markets in which we operate to the national and global investor, entrepreneur, and business person. But it is not only the annual business guides we produce. Capital Analytics hosts high-impact leadership summits where executives convene to discuss the latest obstacles and how to best tackle them. Next, our subscribers stay up to date through our weekly newsletters. We cover hot topics and key issues relevant to the day-to-day business, keeping our subscribers to the annual reports continually up to date. We also put a voice and face to the words in our Invest Insights video series. Hear perspectives on the markets we cover and why they are advantageous from the people making it happen right now. And lastly, the Capital Analytics podcast, where our listeners take us on the go to stay informed of the latest business advice from those at the helm. At Capital Analytics, we know great words come from great minds, and so we bring you real insights.
It's on. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. If you haven't already, if you could find a seat, I see a good amount of open seats, so feel free to meet some new friends and join a table. And it's a pleasure to finally meet all of you in person. I know I've met a lot of you from the chest up via Zoom screen, so it's nice to meet you outside of the computer. For those I have not had a chance to meet, I'm Shane Collins. I'm the Senior Executive Director of Invest Nashville, and we are so thrilled to be here at Bridgestone Arena today. Thank you all for coming. I know a lot of you traveled a good bit and braved some traffic to join us today. I know there's a massive convention in town that we might have had to contend with. But despite all of that, it's so great to be here to celebrate the success of the region with the leaders of Middle Tennessee. So I wanted to say that as some opening words. And without further ado, we're going to move along to our program. And first, I would like to introduce the CEO of Capital Analytics, Abby Maloney. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shane, and good morning. Oh, come on, we're in this wonderful stadium. Good morning. Excellent. Elected officials, moderators, panelists, and honored guests, thank you so much for being here this morning. I'm Abby Maloney, the CEO of Capital Analytics, and welcome to this year's official launch conference for Invest Nashville. We're extremely pleased to be able to present our latest edition to the market, featuring our annual analysis of the regional landscape with insights in the existing and emerging opportunities, as well as the challenges that lie ahead. When most people think of Nashville and Middle Tennessee, of course, music comes to mind, and rightfully so. The region's foundation were built on music, and the reputation of an iconic part of America's musical heritage continues today. But what people realize when they actually come to Nashville is that the foundations have been fortified well beyond the musical roots. And anecdotally, when I arrived here yesterday from Miami, I'm departing the plane and I'm greeted with live music. And I can't tell you how often I hear live music, and it just felt so Nashville. But then I'm taking the Uber downtown, and I'm met with this overwhelming heartbeat of a city. Like, the business community is just thriving and living, and you can feel that from the moment you see the downtown, and it was just incredibly impressive. While tourism and hospitality are important segments of the economy, some people might be surprised to hear that, in fact, the biggest employers are in the healthcare sector. It's an industry that provides well over 167,000 direct jobs in a region, and the sector is widely recognized as a national hub and leader in industry. Tourism and hospitality, fueled by sports, arts, and culture, along with the manufacturing and, of course, music industry, are other key economic pillars. As we point out in our report, based on conversations with around 200 business and regional leaders and our comprehensive research, a comparatively low cost of living and a positive business environment have helped to make the region a magnet for companies and people, making it among the fastest growing locations in the country. Despite the economic uncertainty that looms over both national and regional economies in the near term, our research suggests that Greater Nashville is continuing and ready to build on the growth towards a robust future. Attractive features, including favorable tax landscape, its highly rated quality of life, and reasonable housing, are helping shape a positive outlook. According to many of the leaders we talked to in compiling our report, the key for Nashville and Middle Tennessee moving forward is, and also a challenge, is to continue to take advantage of its strengths to ensure long-term and equitable prosperity. But while Nashville is well positioned for growth, there are headwinds and it will be needed to navigate to ensure a strong future. Rising inflation and higher interest rates are concerns amongst those that we've talked to for this year's annual report, particularly in the face of a potential recession, or at the very least, a national economic downturn. These are issues that have no easy fixes, but nonetheless need to be addressed. To help us better understand the landscape, we've put together what I believe is a stellar program this morning of speakers and topics that reflect the nature of Nashville today and what it could look like tomorrow. As I mentioned, tourism remains a vital part of the regional economy, and sports is among the key reasons for that. To that end, we are excited to hear from our keynote speaker today, Sean Henry, President and CEO of the Nashville Predators. Sean will be followed by 3 robust panels that will further lay the landscape of the region's economy. First, we'll look at Nashville's growth that has been fueled by the real estate boom. Second, we will focus on the financial sector. And rounding out our discussions, we'll look at the healthcare and educational sectors. As we prepared this report this past year, what we've heard from the business community is that we need a balanced strategy and adaptability across all segments of the economy. I've experienced that myself with our own company, Capital Analytics. Business intelligence is our bread and butter, and it will always be vital to growth. We provide that through our printed publications, our digital resources, and conferences like this. But just as important as the intelligence we provide are the relationships that we create and promote, also through these conferences, but with our video platform, Invest Insights, where we provide an avenue for regional leaders to speak directly to the community. In all of our discussions with hundreds of business leaders and political leaders over the past year, there's a marked emphasis on optimism. Today's leaders and our team at Capital Analytics are confident that tomorrow's landscape will be even stronger across the spectrum of sectors that make up the greater Nashville region. And as I mentioned, we have quite a lineup for you today. And before we get going, I'd like to thank our sponsors for today's event. Our gold sponsors, Nashville General Hospital and Truist. Our silver sponsors, Regions Bank and the City Living Group. Our bronze sponsors, Fifth Third Bank, Middle Tennessee Electric, and the Housing Fund. And our honored sponsors, Nashville Predators and the Bridgestone Arena and the Grand Hyatt Nashville. Thank you. It is with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to Nashville and greater Middle Tennessee. Some housekeeping. The reports will be available at the conclusion of this event, and they will be just outside this conference area as you leave. Please take the first edition with you. You might have noticed some table stands where you're sitting, and they have information on our social media. So please join the discussion today by liking us and following us and using the hashtag INAS23Summit. Also, you can register for complimentary access for all the attendees here today, free access to read all of our Invest library by using that QR code, and Invest Nashville is officially a part of that library today. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, Sean Henry, the President and CEO of the Nashville Predators, who has some exciting news to celebrate for now the 9th time, right, Sean? This is has been voted the greatest arena, and we are the first to kind of experience that since the announcement was just last night. So Sean, I'm so delighted to be here, and thank you so much.
Abby, thanks so much. I really don't know if we won it 9 times or not, but you guys don't know any better. You're bankers and investment guys and lawyers. But I think it has been 7 or 8 times. Maybe it's 9. If it's not 9, it will be next year. But we are excited. Just last night, we won that great award, and awards are important in all of our businesses. It's good to be the best at what you do. And what I love about Nashville, what I love about Smashville, what I love about this room, we're sitting with people that are the best at what they do as well. And that's what we are right here in Nashville. It takes a lot of people a little time to realize that we are the most unique market in America, if not North America, if not the world, because we do special things. You know, Abby mentioned the pulse when you drive into the city, you know, via Uber from the airport. And she mentioned the business community. And I always say, we don't have a business community. We don't have a banking community. We don't have a music community or a healthcare community or a sports community. We have a community that cares about all those things. And if you're fortunate enough to have worked here for any longer than a week, you know how unique and special our community is. We all come together to help each other, whether you're competitors in your certain field or not. When the city calls, when there's a need, when there's an opportunity to shine, everybody jumps in. And I think that's captured so well in the Invest magazine, who, when I first started working with Shane 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't know what it was, but he told me, all I want you to do is tell a story about Nashville. And I got excited. I didn't realize how big it was going to be. And then you start reading different issues from different cities, and they're all really good stories. Everyone has a good story to tell, but no one has the story to tell that we have. And we should all be proud of that. You should be, I am. And the future is even brighter than it is right now, because we all have so many good things going on. I was asked to be the keynote speaker, so I get to bore you with what we have going on. But if any one of you got up here, you could tell success after growth after growth. We do more ribbon cuttings than building closures, no matter what industry you're in. And we're just so excited and grateful to all of you that have allowed us to shine in Bridgestone Arena, with the Predators, with our Fordyce Centers in Antioch and Bellevue, what is soon to open in F&M Bank Arena in Clarksville, home to Austin Peay's men and women's basketball programs. That arena, F&M Bank Arena, will do for downtown Clarksville what Bridgestone Arena has done for downtown Nashville. That was the vision of Mayor Durrett when he reached out to us initially 8-9 years ago. And we're 2 months away from opening that great arena. And we're so excited about it. But we do these things because people like you believe in what our vision is before you really should, and you jump on in. Soon, we're going to be making better announcements than what was leaked in Sumner County and Williamson County, with more ice rinks coming. We believe every time we get a chance to plant our flag, we get a chance to tell our story, and then all of your stories too. We get to leverage our fans' passion for our logo, for what we do in each one of those cities to bring your business to life. So thanks for being here today. Thank you for making Nashville such a special place. And thanks for making this book of the 19 they published the very best one, and the one with the most exaggerations and BS there is, but we'll all live into it. And that's what's great about Nashville. We can say anything and know with confidence that we're going to bring it to life. So Shane, Abby, thank you for featuring us. Thank you for letting us host today. I look forward to hosting this virtually every single year, to the foreseeable future. And ideally, it's the day after we announce the 13th arena of the year, and the 15th and the 18th, or whatever number we're up to. But we're very grateful for the support that you've all given us to allow us to celebrate so many memories. And ideally, in the very near future, we're celebrating something we haven't celebrated yet. And when we do bring that cup down Broadway, you're all going to be there. You won't be dressed so well, I hope. But it's going to be a hot party. It's going to be a hot parade, but it's going to be a great celebration of all the things that Nashville does for each other. So again, thank you for being here. Enjoy the day. And I think you called the next speakers robust. You didn't say that about me, but I'm really excited about the robust speakers we all get to hear. So again, thank you for being here.
Let's give another round of applause for Sean. So for those who don't know me, my name is Max Crampton Thomas. I'm the regional editor for the South Markets of Capital Analytics. I've had the good fortune of being able to oversee the completion of both editions of Invest Nashville. And I would like to echo the sentiments that we've already heard today, that the growth of Middle Tennessee has been incredible and a true pleasure to produce an in-depth analysis. quick reminder, we are live streaming the event on YouTube and it will be available there after the event. So please feel free to go back and rewatch and repost. We are also active on our social media channels. So please join in on the discussion by following our handles, tagging us, and adding the hashtag NAS23 Summit. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel, Cranes in the Sky, how Nashville's growth has fueled a real estate boom and how that's changing development. Moderating today's panel is Mr. Marshall Crawford, the president and CEO of the Housing Fund. If the panelists and the moderator can please join me up here on stage, and if we can give them a big round of applause as they head up.
Good morning. Come on now, we're in the South. Y'all know how this happens. I'm not a preacher, but y'all know how it works. Good morning. There you go. There you go. Well, good morning to all of you, and thank you for being here and taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. Thank Shane and Invest Nashville for having us this morning and bringing us all together for the first time in person. I mean, we did it last year virtually, and so now it's good to have the opportunity to see all of you in person. Robust, these jokers are rock stars. Forget about the robust. We're going to just share a little bit with you about what's happening in Nashville. My name is Marshall Crawford, President and CEO of the Housing Fund. The Housing Fund is a private nonprofit community development financial institution supported by so many of you in this room. We thank you for your investing in the Housing Fund and believing in the work that we're doing throughout Tennessee, not just in Nashville, but throughout Tennessee. We've been around for going on 27 years. Why? Because in 1996, there was an affordable housing crisis in Nashville. 1996, an affordable housing crisis. And today, here we are 27 years later, we're still dealing with an affordable housing crisis. But that crisis is even more robust because of all the work that you're doing and everything that is happening with this great city. And so what I'd like to do is introduce you to three rock stars here that have had a significant impact on the growth of this city, and let them talk a little bit about some of the work that they're doing. And then I have some very pointed questions, because if you give me a microphone, I will go on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. Y'all know how that all goes, right? So the thing is that I have some questions here that I'm going to ask and direct collectively and then individually so that we can talk a little bit about it. So let's start off with the gentleman who I think many of you know from the work that he has done, Mark Dushman, who is founder of so many, but CEO of only one. And so let's have him talk a little bit about who he is, his organizations, and then we'll kick off some other questions with our other three panelists as well.
So my name is Mark Doyle, and I founded Village Real Estate Services back in 1996, back when we only had 5 units that were owned in the Central Business District. We were a hollow shell of what we were today. So it is interesting that you talk about the need for affordable housing even back then. I have a company called the City Living Group, and we do multifamily residential. We sell developments for lots of different groups, both downtown and in and around Nashville. And then I have core development services. So we're also developers mostly of multifamily residential. We've done work, for instance, in Wedgwood and some other locations where we're doing mixed use projects.
So thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. John Verdeman, another incredible rock star in the city, doing some great work. Have come to this city and really having an impact there. Why don't you share a little bit about who you are and your company and what you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Marshall. You've also mixed, we got rock, rap, hip hop, all the references are all in there already. So we're definitely the Music City.
Absolutely.
So John Vardaman, I'm with DPR Construction. We've been building things here for about 10 years or so. I run our local office here with help from some of the folks sitting over there at our table. Our motto is we exist to build great things. And that's, of course, great projects, but also great relationships and great communities. And that's why I'm so glad to be invited to be here on this panel today to really talk about a little bit of that, to build those relationships and just to talk a little bit about the community we live in and all love. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And Sean Buck, another rock star for us. And yes, we are in Music City. And J.E. Dunn has done a lot of great work, many projects in this city. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and your company as well?
Thank you. Following that, and Sean Henry's a little hard, so bear with me. So my name's Sean Buck. I'm Senior Vice President J.E. Dunn. I've got the honor of representing about 250 employees in our throughout the Middle Tennessee area, and just a wonderful team. I moved to Nashville in 1998, and I've had the privilege to see this city grow and be part of that growth, and to do some really, really incredible things with a lot of people in this room, which I'm remarkably grateful for. So excited to be here and thankful for the opportunity.
Good. Well, gentlemen, thank you. So let's talk about what's happening, and let's start off by setting the stage, talking about the economy and where the economy is now. You know, there's labor shortages, there's supply chain issues, and then there's this thing called interest rates and how they're affecting the work that you do and the work that many of us in this room do as well. So share with me a little bit of how these factors are actually impacting the real estate and the construction market. And then what do you see as potential opportunities that we should be focusing on? So who would like to start off and take that on?
Yeah, I guess I'll take that one. So our world has gotten harder, right? There's no doubt about that. Deals are harder to pull together than they have been, but good real estate survives economic cycles. And, you know, we've seen that, and Nashville's been remarkably resilient. I mean, when I compare, we've got 24 offices across the country. As I look at other markets, it's amazing what we've seen happen here. Real estate in this city is still open for business. It is harder. Supply chains made that difficult. Interest rates have made that. A lot of things have made that. But you know, we've seen activity continue here. We've started a high-profile hotel and a fully spec office building within the last 90 days in this market. So, you know, I think for us, those opportunities lie in sound fundamentals, good real estate. They also, you know, surround themselves with businesses where their economics continue to thrive. Healthcare, we mentioned earlier, industrial manufacturing, some of those spaces. So we think the market's still very bright. A lot of good things ahead for us.
I would just say, I was reading the other day, a wise person said, we're sort of things can be growing and contracting at the same time. And I think that's, Sean talked about it is a difficult market. That's a little bit of what makes it difficult, is that I think if it was just completely booming, we know what to do. If it's a recession, I think most of the business leaders here, you kind of know what to do and you hunker down. We're in a little bit of this where it's a little bit of both at the same time. No one's really sure what's happening. And so you really do have to look harder at what those opportunities are, where the financing's coming from. And from a construction standpoint, it can take longer to get the things in your project than it actually does to build the project. I mean, we've seen lead times for certain things in the supply chain. They're 30 months, and we can build your building in 24 months. And so that's really going to impact how you might approach the early stages of a project. And so having the right people on the team and sort of that forward-looking planning, I think, is even more important now than it was when things were just all booming.
So we do a lot of multifamily residential. We do sales, we do development. So when we started some of the projects we're selling currently, the interest rates were 3.5%. We had to sell those projects in advance to de-risk the project. Well, now it's 2 years later and we've been hampered by supply chain issues. We don't have transformers to get the electric to the projects. The city officials are busy, so it's hard to get inspections. And now the buyers are waiting to close and the interest rates crept over 5%, 6%. 7%. And now they're having to close. They really want to close because the prices have gone up, but it's very difficult. And it exasperates the affordable housing issue that you've talked about.
Absolutely. And all of you make good points that talk about the issues of what the economy and the challenges of the economy. But growth is not stopping here in Nashville. But we're having growing pains as we continue to do that. So what does smart growth look like? How do we do this in a more consistent and collaborative way? So talk a little bit about that. And then in addition to that, what factors are influencing your decisions about how to ensure that the growth is smart?
One, you and I served on an affordability and transportation task force a few years back, and we talked about, smart growth on the transit stops. And we talked about sort of greenways and trail-oriented development. We were working on the Charlotte corridor, but it speaks to all the corridors in Nashville. We've been building for a car-centric society for 50 to 70 years. And now what we need to do is really connect the dots in the urban core. We need to connect people to places with greenways, with smart bikeways, and make it easy for people to get their kids to schools, to get to jobs, to get to the church, get to anywhere without necessarily having to jump in the car. So we need to make, it's almost an ingredient for affordable living. You let people move without a car and they'll save some money.
I would also add, you talked a little bit about, what do we look for in opportunities and how do we make smart growth happen? To me, the biggest thing is labor availability. We're continuing to see supply chain improvements, but I stay awake at night worrying about where we're going to get all the people to build these buildings, and not just to build the buildings, to work in all the businesses we have here. I think I'd be sort of living in a dream world if I thought that I wasn't competing with a lot of the people in this room for the same labor force. I think that's just the world we live in now. And so setting up good transportation systems, including folks beyond just the Nashville core and all of Middle Tennessee, and how we sort of raise the level of all the communities here so that people are continuing to move in to the area so that we can keep driving our businesses forward with available labor.
Yeah, there's no doubt about growing pains, right? The downside, however, growing pains are better than the other problem, which is not growing, right? So we're blessed that we're in a city that has some of those challenges, but we do have to focus on. We've got to get smarter. Candidly, we've got some big checks to write in this city right now from an infrastructure standpoint, from a physical infrastructure, electric, roads, water, et cetera, things that can make development continue and plan for development in the future. And we've also got some real social infrastructure expenses coming, affordable housing we mentioned, but education, healthcare. How do we take care of this workforce that we're working really hard to build and keep it? So you know what? The good news is Nashville made a lot of investments ahead of this, boom we're living in now. The trick is we've got to make those investments so we see that in the future. And I think we're poised to do that, but there's a lot of work to be done.
Well, all three of you mentioned the element of affordability and the influx of individuals moving into the city, and then the labor shortages and where all these people are coming from and how they're going to be able to live in a city that is growing as fast as Nashville is growing. Do you see this influx of individuals that are moving here? Do you see your projects? Are you looking at your projects differently? Is the nature of your projects changing on what you're focusing on and how you're focusing on it? And Mark, you did touch on that a little bit from when we did serve on the Affordable Housing Task Force years ago, some of the way that we were looking at the city. But do you see now your current projects being different than what they were years ago, or maybe even a couple months ago?
Yeah, when I was chair of the Urban Land Institute back in 2019, we hosted the spring meeting and we had 4,300 of the top developers and financiers come to our city and have a look. And we got named the #1 emerging trend city at the time. Well, it's sort of a natural phenomena that now we're #1 2 years in a row. So that has caused a huge influx of people. And first of all, this last few years, we've been seeing huge numbers of people come from New York City, from Chicago, from LA, from Silicon Valley, and they all have been coming from markets that are more expensive. And so that drove up the prices considerably. So how are we adapting to it? Well, for now, we're looking at places like Hip Madison. We bought the Memorial Hospital, but we're trying to work with your pilot programs and some of the tools that you bring to the table to see if we can create both attainable and affordable housing. But it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. Do you see the nature of your projects changing? And
Yeah, we do. I mean, one, we're seeing they're larger, they're more complex. I mean, everybody in this room has had some involvement in that. These deals are harder to put together and they're bigger, they're more dense. So that has definitely been a trend we've seen. We've also seen a real flight to quality as we have to have real estate that differentiates itself from your peers. So if we're seeing the not only the size and scale of projects growing, we're also seeing the cost, and the quality standard that, your customers expect increasing as well. I think that's good for the city overall, but it is definitely changing the landscape. We're going to see more density and we're going to see higher end product here. At the same time, we're trying to compete for how do people live here. So you're going to have some competing forces there.
Yeah, I would just add one thing. I think Sean said it very well. It's in to sort of build on what Mark said. Success really just keeps raising. If you have a high profile and you have great success like we've had, it just keeps raising the standard. And so I think we just have to get comfortable with that and know that it's going to keep continuing. The other quick number I throw out is I was reading that, we're talking about competing for the same labor. It is getting more expensive to build because we're having to raise wages across the board to do that. So it's a little bit of a cyclical effect, but the starting average wage is around $36 an hour in construction, which is now $3 more an hour than starting average for a college graduate that just graduated. And so that's having another impact on construction cost here as well.
It's interesting. Middle Tennessee serves as the anchor for so many other local cities around the city. So sprawl is a major conversation, and the impact that, individuals can't afford to live in Nashville. So they're looking at Clarksville, and we heard about the new stadium being built in Clarksville, or they're looking at Columbia, Tennessee, or they're looking at other nearby cities. How do we address that? What do we say to these other municipalities and local governments about the impact that Nashville is having on their cities?
One, I think just let's all pause for a minute. That's great that we're even asking that question. I can remember being at similar events in the past, and the question was, this is great for Nashville, but what about all the outlying areas? And I think it's really wonderful that now we're saying, hey, all these other places are booming too. And that was sort of the thinking back then, was that, look, if Nashville is going to do well, it's going to distribute out to the other cities. And I think that's a little bit of what we're seeing now. And so again, that's a good thing overall. I do think those other cities, much like Nashville, has reached out and done studies and learning opportunities for how do you look at what other communities have been through. I think the more that our sort of surrounding communities are doing that. I know Williamson County just hosted an event where they went and looked at some of the outlying areas in Phoenix, and we're trying to understand, some of their lessons learned. I think there's a lot to be said for doing that for all of our outlying communities, so that we're sort of learning from people who have been there before.
It has been a lot of fun, being part of the growth in Nashville from again, when it was a shell of what it is today. But you can look around some other regions that also need to think about their core. And we've been down in Chattanooga for the last few days, and Chattanooga's done a good job setting the stage for almost 50 years. They cleaned up the city. They came in and had the fortitude and the philanthropic support to come in and build their park systems in the urban core. They retained and maintained their historic fabric, and they've got a lot of gaps that still need to happen. You can go down and look at that city and go, wow, they have the Chattanooga way. They've got some really good things. They've built out an urban greenway system. Now you could see, being in the path of Nashville and Atlanta, that they're ripe for a resurgence. So you can see the impact of a Nashville sort of spreading across the state.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think growth and prosperity don't come by accident, right? They come with planning, they come with intentionality. I look at, and we've got some great examples of that in outlying areas. What happened in Franklin as they built themselves as a suburban, office core, or, what is going on in Clarksville right now. Those are investments that were made 30, 40 years prior to prepare themselves for the, growth and prosperity that's come. So I think we've seen some great examples of that. There's still some areas in and around Nashville where that needs to happen. But I think it should be viewed, to John's point, that's a positive thing as long as you're intentional about it. And we see, we're fortunate to be working in Clarksville currently. See what happens to wages for employees in that area. See what happens to housing as they continue to grow. But their planning over multiple years is what led to that, and it's remarkably impressive. I think we've got a lot more of that to do.
Well, thank you. So now let's get very specific about what you do as individuals and some of the comments that you have shared in particular. John, you were interviewed for Invest, and you're going to be in the magazine when you pick it up today. But you made some very pointed comments about efficiency and what the new normal looks like. You talked about shorter budgets. You talked about constrained timelines. You talked about the general desire of people wanting their projects done a whole lot faster. In your perspective, share a little bit more about where the avenues of greater efficiencies lie for the work that you do and how others should be approaching.
Yeah. And I should say too, I don't think that's all a bad thing. We should be pushing the envelope. We should want to do, what is more value for the money? How can we deliver it faster and better? Sean said there is tremendous, sort of flight to quality, or we raise our profile. People just expect more from the real estate that they're moving into or working in. For me, that really revolves around, planning people, and also I'd say prefabrication to get really in the weeds. I was reading the other day, 90% of all projects in a recent survey had experienced a delay of some sort from their original timeline. 80% of those they attributed to an owner delay. There's probably a little bit of skewing there because they're probably talking to a bunch of general contractors and it's never our fault. But I do think that there's something there in the numbers where people are starting and there's a focus on starting fast rather than finishing fast. And that's where that planning piece really comes in, where I think on projects now, you've really got to bring a lot of people to the table, and that's where having the right people involved early on, because you don't want to get halfway through a project and realize I need one more consultant, or, I've got to go engage this other department within the city or the county that I never even knew or thought to think about. You've really got to vet that out early and often to get that in place as soon as possible. And then when I say prefabrication, I know people sort of roll their eyes and everybody thinks of, the IKEA furniture you bought when you just got out of college, but it is really about limiting the manpower on site if you want an efficient, well-run construction project. That issue is not going to get better. That's the reality we have to face.
Absolutely. You make good points. And Sean, you're shaking your head. Absolutely. Yeah. And y'all are doing projects from multifamily to billion-dollar EV plants, industrial sites, all of those things. And we talk about prefabricating or trying to get things done in a more efficient way. Speak to the element of the construction landscape. And when you look at it, what industries are driving some of the things that you're focusing on and how you're working on those things?
I mean, I think you can look at a lot of the growth in Nashville and where the strongest industries are. They feed our business. We're not that smart, right? We follow where the business takes us. So I think, healthcare has been the fabric of this community for a long time. That's been a big piece of our book of business. On the private development side, we're really seeing it come from well-heeled sponsors with good real estate, and sound business practices, so those you're having to gravitate towards those deals that were a little bit more fringe aren't happening. So, but those quality ones still are. And then I think it comes down to, Nashville's economy is remarkably more robust than it was even in, 2008, right? This was a healthcare and music and that was it, right? Well, that's not the case now. You've got the tech sector, which has got some bumps currently, but you've got industrial manufacturing. You've got, you mentioned our deal in Clarksville on the EV side. I think I saw a quote from Stuart McWhorter that said, "Hey, we're on the first quarter." I'm not even sure we kicked the ball off there yet. I mean, those type of growth environments and the things we're seeing, that's where our business goes. And if John and I and our competitors are good at what we do, we're going to follow it. But the nice part is it's coming from a lot of different places. And so if you have a tech downturn for a window of time, you can survive it. And we've been intentional about our diversity of work, but luckily we're in a market where we can do that.
Well, since we're in the Preds arena, I think you meant drop the puck instead of kick the ball. But good points there. So Mark, you're known, everybody knows you as a community builder, and you've been building this community for a very long time. And you touched on this earlier, but I'd like for you to give us some more insight about how we can do things in a very innovative way with the influx of people that are moving here. Again, affordability is a challenge, and people are looking at and wanting things from a very different perspective. And so talk a little bit about how you're approaching that and how you're handling.
Well, while we've been in a pandemic, we've been building the greenway system that you and I talked about that will come from Centennial Park and now come down to the farmers market. So that's going to kick off this year. You're going to see construction on that project. We've also been thinking about where the old Sound Stadium used to be. It's sort of a 68-acre park that could happen for a community that's there. Well, that's now out for master plan. And you're going to see, I think, some funding in this next capital budget that will create a world-class urban park that will serve our community. I'm also now thinking about, I'm the chair of business outreach for the mayor's office of sustainability, and we're looking at some other things right now. We're looking at our carbon footprint. We're a city now that's pledged to reduce our carbon by 50% by 2030, 80% by 2050. And we really have to step it up, when you look at everything happening on a global level. And we're working with a business cohort. There's 14 large businesses, Bridgestone, Nissan, et cetera, that are all looking at their own sustainability plans and looking to see how we can influence, the robust entrepreneurial businesses that are in our region to do the same, to make sure that we're being responsible stewards of our city and the planet.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So we set the stage by talking about issues that are being impacted by the economy. Then we talked about what you're currently doing and how the environment currently is being driven by growth. So let's look at a little bit about the future and what you see about the future. So do you see the emergence of a different Nashville?
You kind of stunned us all into silence with that when we all want to make predictions, right? And everybody's, this is being recorded, I think, on YouTube. I don't know that it's a different Nashville. I mean, I think certainly, look, Nashville is going to continue to evolve and change. Absolutely. I think the fundamentals of what attracted me personally to Nashville, brought many of our businesses here, were this ability to, someone will always take your first meeting. Someone, Sean said, if you've been here a week, you've already realized that it's not a bunch of different communities, it's one community. So I think sort of that spirit is still alive and well. I do think as just Nashville grows and gets to be bigger, that we've really got to sort of codify that into more maybe formal or official ways. I know that, right now we're participating in the mayor and the NDOT set up a multimodal access closure advisory committee, which is quite the mouthful, but it's really about how do we get more clear guidelines and make the lane closures and everything that's necessary for construction of all types, whether it's high rises or greenways. How do we make sure that's really benefiting not just the people that are building, but it's really taken into account all the stakeholders in the room? And so I think those types of organizations where you have builders, developers, the fire department, engineers, everybody has a seat at the table and can really not only discuss the problem, but then give people that are trying to build and trying to actually get things done a forum to see what they have to do to accomplish their projects. That's what's going to be needed to continue to drive this forward.
Sean?
Yeah, it's definitely going to change, right? But it can change. We've seen it change in our time here. It continues to get better, and I think it's people like this in the room. It's people like we're grateful enough to work for and with that keep Nashville special. And I don't think growth doesn't mean we have to lose that, and I don't think this city's poised for that.
I hope not. There's a lot of good things about Nashville, but we actually have a brand. Music City is a good brand. And when I was chair again of the Urban Land Institute, I was traveling around the country, and everybody was so envious of the brand. They're like, how do we do that as a city? It's like, well, it's not easy, but we should keep it, for one. And then secondly, I said, if you ever get a chance to have a TV show that bears the name of your city, take it.
Good point. So final thoughts here, and let's tie all this together. There's this song that I think Stevie Wonder wrote called "There's a Ribbon in the Sky for Your Love." Well, branding.
Wow. Keep going. That was awesome. Fun.
So for branding, there's cranes in the sky for our city. And so with the cranes all in the sky, what are your thoughts around that? What does that mean to you when you see all of these cranes in the sky?
Well, I wish a couple of more were ours, is the first reaction to that. For us, that means that this city's thriving. It's growing. It's going to continue to grow and be better. And, that comes with a lot of excitement. And I think it comes with a big responsibility too. But we're fortunate that we're in a market that has, that kind of stuff going on.
for me, I would say, cranes in the sky means things are changing. And it's really, there's a proportional mix too. If you have cranes in the sky, there's 10 times as many other projects going on. And that really just means things are changing. It's nothing to fear, certainly nothing to be worried about, but it is something to jump in and participate. There's change, there's growth, there's a lot of opportunity. I know the folks in this room feel that way. That's why you're showing up here this morning. So it's how do we all jump in and really influence that in a positive way?
It makes me realize that we need to do more small scale development and that 1 mile radius, walkable, livable communities. Keep a look at your own community and what you can do to do good work right at home. And like, look at the corridors that are emerging that used to be car centric, come in and start populating small pieces of it. Doesn't have to be cranes in the skies. It could be small things, create livability, walkability, great communities. And I have a book, 1 mile radius, in the back. If anybody would like a copy, please.
And it's a wonderful book, and I thank you for the free copy as well. Ladies and gentlemen, didn't I tell you we had rock stars here? Let's give a round of applause for our rock stars. Mhm. Good, good, good. And Shane is coming.
Just sing to us a little bit while we're
Sing
waiting.
to you, man, believe me, I know I'm gonna get ridiculed by my staff here later for the singing, but we're gonna take a pictures. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our moderator and panelists for such an insightful first panel discussion. For those who don't know me yet, my name is Jimena Teran. I'm Regional Director of the Southeast Markets we cover at CAA, at Capital Analytics. It is a true honor to be here witnessing such a great group of people come together to discuss the most relevant topics within the business community of Middle Tennessee. A reminder to register today to read the Invest Nashville report completely complimentary by using those QR codes on your table. You not only get that report, but free access to our entire library. Also, you can join our discussion on social media today by following our handles, also on that handy table stand, using the hashtag INAS23Summit. With that, I am pleased to announce our coming panel on financial fortitude. How's Nashville financial leaders and are responding to regional growth in a shifting landscape? Please help me welcome our moderator and panelist.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Now we're on. I have to echo Marshall and just say thank you for having all of us. It's great to look out here and see so many familiar faces. So I'm Ryan Wood. I have the privilege to work at UBS in wealth management, but I also had the privilege to grow up here. And so I'm hearing a lot about the changing landscape in Nashville, and I see it firsthand. So I just moved back this summer and it looks a lot different than it did when I left in 2005. So I'm thrilled to be back. Now that's gonna be a hard panel to follow. They were singing, there was the real estate rock stars. So we're gonna take ideas from all of you on the finance. It's the real estate rock stars. Well, by the end of this, hopefully we'll have.
Are you gonna sing?
I'm actually not gonna sing. I was hoping you would though.
We can hum. Not a chance.
Perfect. That's perfect. So what I'd like to do is, like Marshall, I have some questions for all of you. I think feel free to jump in. I can put you on the spot, whatever you all want to do. I would say we don't have that much time. So if there's a question I ask and you feel like they already covered what I would say, we'll just go to the next one. And then I do have a few for each of you. But let me introduce our panelists. And again, thank you all for being here. So Johnny Moore Jr., Regional President of Truist. We've got Bradford Vieira, Executive Vice President and Regional CEO for Service First Bank. We've got Lee Blank, Market Executive for Regions Bank. So again, thank you all for being with us. Okay, let's get started. Keeping with the theme of change, over the last 2 years, we have seen businesses conducted at a breakneck pace with almost insurmountable demand across a variety of sectors. Now there's talk of a correction. How should we contextualize today's current environment when looking at the last 2 years, and why does that matter when people talk about a potential recession? Everyone's favorite topic. Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start.
Thank you. You're brave.
Okay. I mean, that's a big question. That's a question that's on everybody's mind. And everybody needs to understand the Fed is always in a reactive mode. So they see what's going on in the economy, they make adjustments, they see do they work. If they don't work, then they make an adjustment. So the only thing about that approach, you're never going to be perfect. It's more of a shotgun approach versus a rifle. So right now we're dealing with interest rates and trying to get the economy stabilized, inflation down. But guess what? Last week we got an incredible jobs report. So that goes right in the face of inflation settling down. You still got employment high. To really calm down the economy, you got to see some job loss, which takes off the pressure of inflation. And until you really see that, the Fed's going to keep their foot on the pedal. So that means rates in the future are going to continue to go up. And as they go up, you have housing markets going to be impacted. Even though we say a 6+% interest rate is high now compared to when we could get 2.5 2 years ago, but still you're single digits, and still it's a good time to buy a house.
You're right, Johnny. And I think what people need to remember too is everything pivoted so quickly. I mean, we went from a situation with historically low interest rates, coming off the pandemic. Everybody was flush with stimulus money. The banks were flush with liquidity, and everything was just hot, hot, hot. And then, so I don't think anybody's surprised that we are facing what we're facing. But you're right, Johnny. I think we need to keep in mind it's all relative. We're not talking about 10 or 12% interest rates. We're still talking about single digits. But I think I'm biased with Nashville. I think Nashville's the greatest place on earth. But I think very resilient economy, and I think we may have some corrections here and there, but nothing major.
I would echo what they said. First thing you learned is you don't fight the Fed. And then what the gentleman before us said is, quality projects, quality people that make smart business decisions. When you're in a rising interest rate environment like we were last year, that really panics people and or not panic, but you don't know how to react. And once you start to see a little stabilization, even if we're still going to see interest rates rise, people start to be able to factor that in and look at their business plans. It makes for being cautious. And as bankers, I once heard us described as an industry that you want your banker carrying an umbrella on a sunny day because you just don't know. So that's what a banker or you as a business person should really be thinking is, I don't know where all of this is going to go, but what are the variables that may impact my business and how can I be prepared?
Well, let's actually stay on interest rates for a second, because I'm sure that's folks' favorite topic. But for the people in this room, there are probably two camps of us, right? There's some who don't remember the high interest rates in the 80s and 90s, and there are some of us who never experienced that. So all we can think about is what's happening now. But when you think about today's rate environment, what do each of you think is what makes something a good deal today? Whether for your clients, your business, what's a good deal in today's environment?
That's in the eye of the beholder. But I do think it goes back to quality. I was having a conversation earlier. If it's around real estate, your prices are not going to go down on real estate. They may moderate and not grow as fast. And you might not be able to develop that property, or you might not be able to do some of those things, but you may make the decision to acquire it. But that will require additional capital because the cost of borrowing has certainly gone up, and you're going to have to, you're really just going to have to make the equation of how you're going to finance that project is going to require something different. All of us have said here, we come at it from different perspectives on interest rates.
You got to bank the right people. And good people will get you through the peaks and valleys of the economy. But one thing we are doing, Ryan, is we're doing a lot more stress testing now than we probably have in 10 years. We bank a lot of operating businesses at Service First, and some companies that looked really good at 3 and 4% interest rates don't look so good at 7-8% interest rates. So we're doing a lot of stress testing and making sure we are advising our business clients appropriately to make sure that they can continue to grow their business and do it in a good manner.
Yeah, I would just hit on that one point about businesses is really understanding your business dynamics. Number one, what are your costs? Or when you look at your costs, how much are fixed versus variable? And so you got to look at, if you scale your business up, what it's going to cost me. And if my business drops off, how much can I move really quickly? So, and then the most important thing right now, with inflation still dealing with that right now, is how much of my costs, as my costs increase, how much can I pass on to my clients? And if you don't have the ability to pass on those costs, that's just your margin shrinking with every tick. And you got to understand, can I stay in this game or do I need to do something different? And I think that's the point a lot of businesses don't realize until it's too late, that ability to pass on that cost to the end users to keep their profit margin they need to stay sustainable.
The previous panel shared some accolades that Nashville has received over the years, and around this time last year, the real estate company Clever actually named Nashville the number 15 city to start a business. Considering that ongoing growth and all the opportunity that may be coming here, how are each of your respective institutions looking to provide the necessary support for those businesses, both big and small? And then I'd follow that up with, is there anything that entrepreneurs should know if they are considering Music City to start their business?
I'll start. Obviously, and they covered it earlier with the other panel. I mean, Tennessee's still a very business-friendly environment. Low corporate taxes, low state and local taxes. Believe it or not, we're still considered an affordable place to live. I think that is changing by the minute. But we have, all of us here in this panel have a responsibility, even with these rising interest rates, and whether we're going through a recession or a correction or whatever word you want to use, we've still got to make sure we're providing capital to business owners so they can keep growing their business, keep the economy going. But overall, Nashville is still one of the most business-friendly economies in the country.
I echo that. And it's also a very entrepreneurial city. It's a very welcoming city. Banks have our role in it for companies that are a bit more established, but there continues to need to be that angel and next level capital for some of those businesses, but that continues to grow here because that is one of the things that over my career I've really noticed and watched versus other markets that I've covered is a very good ecosystem for entrepreneurism and starting new business and starting new ideas. So all of the things that Brad just mentioned create that environment, and I think we have the ability to sustain that.
And, being Truist, a very big bank, we just have a unbelievable platform that we can help all companies from all segments, from small businesses, SBA loans, to taking companies public, and all unique tools like new market tax credits, CTC loan. So all these very incredible tools that are out there that can really be helpful, especially when your capital stack is tight and you need that equity. We just have a pretty good view of what's going on overall and can be really creative with our clients.
Yeah, so kind of in sticking with that as well, we're talking about, rising interest rates and inflation, but recent CPI data actually showed that inflation may be slowly cooling. So we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, at least as it relates to that. But is there a possibility that we may now be entering a deflationary environment? And what do you think that would mean for Nashville and the surrounding areas?
I'll jump in first since the other guys have already done it. Even if I don't see that in any near future, But if we were to see that, Nashville is one of the most resilient economies. If you really go back generationally, how our business environment has changed. Well, healthcare and music have been a core, and state government's been a core, the university systems, we used to be the printing capital of the world. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. So, and publishing. So we still have a lot of publishing, but it's digital now. So our businesses have changed, and we've had an industrial base that's changed from the type of manufacturing we've done. So, and the logistics that we have here. So just the underpinnings of our economy. And once you're on the kind of growth trajectory that we're on, you don't turn that off. So I don't see that anywhere in our short or long-term future, even if it becomes a more global or broader impact.
Ryan, like I said earlier, I'm biased. I was born and raised here. I think it's the best economy in the world, but we have such a diverse, like he says, such a diverse economy: education, healthcare, tourism, manufacturing. Not any one thing gets affected depending on what's going on in the economy, which makes us so resilient. But we also got to keep in mind that there, I think I don't like the word recession. I'm a banker. I don't like the word recession. But I do think some things need to be corrected, right? So if 18 months ago, somebody built $1 million home and it was worth 1.3 million about 90 days later or whatever it was, that we're not going to be doing that right now. And I don't think values are going down, but I think we're going to have a little bit of a correction on the growth trajectory that we had on some of the real estate.
I would say, as I stated a little bit earlier, I think the Fed is in a reactive mode, and sometimes they overcorrect. So you could potentially see a drop, and I'd say nationally, not just Nashville. I think we could see a national slight recession, but it just depends on the market. Every market is different. And the thing that's so different about Nashville is a destination spot. People are relocating from the West Coast, East Coast to Nashville, which generate additional growth, new employment, and just look at the economy. I mean, how many people looked at a private school lately, tried to get into a private school? You're on a wait list. You try to go to country club, you're on a wait list. That's not recession-like. I mean, right now, it's just because of the influx of people from the North, East, and the West Coast. Nashville puts us in a whole different dynamic. And if it is a recession overall, Nashville, I guess it's kind of like if they get the flu, Nashville might get a cold. And I just think that's the way you got to look at it. And just the positive nature of Nashville, the resilience, the business mix, the people. It's just so many dynamic things going from Nashville that I think it will minimize the impact overall. But like you said, the Fed is going to be reactive. In that latest job report, they're going to keep their foot on raising rates.
I think you're right. Look, Nashville's a place people want to be, right? Whether it's businesses or people moving here. So Johnny, I want to stick with you. You mentioned Truist is doing kind of some new and interesting things for clients, but another thing that I'm not sure this group knows about is that Truist just provided $1.25 million in funding to the Nashville Business Incubation Center. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that. Why? Tell us about that partnership. And then you also announced the Truist Where It Starts initiative. And I'm not sure folks in this room are familiar with that either. So can you talk about that and maybe why you're doing that, what you expect to see, how that's going to help Nashville, and kind of just give this group an update?
Well, when we started on this journey a little over 3 years ago with BB&T and SunTrust merging to become Truist, we made a commitment to spend $60 billion to really make every community we're in better. And we're sticking to that. And we made the investment in the Nashville Incubation Center because one of the big things about economies and you talk about affordability is how do you help every segment of the community participate in the economy? And we see a big opportunity for minority businesses, female-owned businesses getting established in Nashville. And that's why we said, hey, you can talk a lot, but when you put your money out there to really try to drive change. And that's what we're doing. We feel like it's a big opportunity for women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses in Nashville to really step up their game and be a bigger part of this economy. This robust economy here, we got to help all segments grow. And the start here was just another program. It just furthers that on a national level where we're saying, okay, we're going to try to help people who maybe have been uneducated, can't really get into a job that could pay a meaningful wage. How do we help those people? And bottom line is we're trying to do programs to sponsor to help them get the skill sets to be in industries they hadn't historically participated in, like the financial industries. You know, it's just not a lot of minorities at high level participating. And we're just trying to put our money to do things to help grow our communities, because our purpose at True is to inspire and build better lives in communities. If we don't deploy our capital back into our markets, build our communities, because when we understand when we build our communities, we build our banks.
Absolutely. And I think, UBS has had a partnership with them as well. And it's pretty incredible the types of things that I think our local community is able to do when it comes to helping business owners. Just out of curiosity, what types of businesses are these folks wanting to start? Is there a theme? Is it all over the place?
I think it's all over the place, but in Nashville, the construction and business is doing well. I mean, it's providing services. I mean, it's all across the board. We're agnostic to, hey, what do they want to be in? But what we want to do is make sure they learn how to be good business owners, that they understand their variable costs, their fixed costs. They know what it takes to run their business, the capital needs and understanding. I think a lot of people understand they collect receivables, they get all that cash and they say, I made money, but that's just turning on your receivables. You hadn't made money. You got to look at your income statement to really understand you made money, and then you can start buying things. But you got to save. It's all those dynamics. Understanding your capital. How do you redeploy your capital, and when does that capital? When can you take it out and be used for personal uses? Because a lot of small businesses, they're all together. It's one big pot, and it becomes problematic when it gets tight.
Yeah, they're competing a lot of times for the same funding. So Bradford, over to you. You actually interviewed also with Invest. I don't know, it was maybe a few months ago, but you explained how Services First new Broadwest location was ideal for both the bank and its clients. But I think what's interesting across the banking industry, we are seeing some physical locations consolidate, and so there's some discussion around that. How do you view, Service First Bank's locations? Are they supporting local businesses? Are they supporting the bank's, internal operational considerations, or how are y'all thinking about your locations in this environment?
Sure. Thank you. No, we're thrilled to death to be in the Broadwest development for our long-term home. A little bit of background. We started Service First, the Nashville region, back in 2013. We were at, I guess it's called the Tennessean building now, but I call it Old Palmer Plaza. But we were there. We had employees spread over 2 or 3 floors, and we're looking for that permanent home for us. And Broadwest just made so much sense for us. We are a branch light model, unlike Truist and Regions to a certain degree. We spend a lot of money on our technology. We want to go to our clients. We don't want our clients to have to come to us. But you still need that, 1 or 2 locations in a market to serve them. And that's why being centrally located there on West End was so important to us, Ryan. And it's great for our employees. Listen, we've got employees that live in Hendersonville, Smyrna, Franklin. So being centrally located was paramount for us as well, and having some visibility right there. But we've also got some great new meeting space now that our clients can use. They can come, have lunch and learns, have off sites in our space. They visit with us, we visit with them. Just was a really good situation for us. The branch situation, I think the pandemic kind of proved out that consumers and business owners don't have to walk into a branch to run their business, to pay their electric bill, to do what they need to do, as long as the banks that they work with have really good technology, which I know all these banks represented up here all have really good technology. So I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny and Lee aren't constantly looking at and trying to make decisions on where does it make most sense for our branches to be? Do we need what we have? Service First kind of started much after these guys, 2005, and we've always had a branch light model, so we don't have a lot of branches to begin with. Just a really good, robust online banking system.
Look, it's about access, right? I think the world changed, clients have changed, how we all do business and want to work has changed. So that's exciting. Well, welcome to Broadwest. Lee, over to you. So you've been involved in banking in Nashville specifically for a number of years. So in Nashville, around Nashville, tell us throughout your career, how have you seen like, local banking change? How have you seen financial services change? And what do you think in terms of like banking impact? How has that impacted Nashville the most, just as you've seen kind of this industry evolve over the last your career?
That's a great question. You could have a great board game on names of banks and stuff around here. But I'd first like to say that I get the opportunity to represent over 1,000 associates, regions associates in across all of our markets in Middle Tennessee. We're the longest continuously operating bank. And what I really like is that our associates reflect the communities we live in. So we really see our communities and are able to react to our communities and be involved in our communities. And we've got a lot of great competitors in this market. And that's what I will tell you is while being based in Nashville, I have worked other markets for our company over my career. And Nashville is one of the, if not the most competitive market, which is a great benefit to consumers because there's more access. There's more competition. There was a day that when I started my career, there was really principally 3 banks that were here. Now there's almost 80 banks that are operating here. There's no real concentration. If you go to Charlotte, where a number of banks, but or Atlanta, there was still a core major bank, and it's still a little concentrated. Nashville's very fragmented and it's very very competitive. And I think again that's everybody wants to be here, whether you're a community bank, whether you're a money center bank, whether you're a regional bank, it's all along the spectrum. And again, that's healthy for the economy. That's healthy. It's the growth pains that we heard in the other one. It's the growth pains we'll hear in the latter one. I think our responsibility as bankers is that we have to serve all of our communities, and that's going to get probably to one of your future is how do we sustain, affordability? How do we sustain prosperity for everyone? How do we engage in workforce development? All those are all 3 things that we as a bank, and I know my peers here, that our organizations are thinking about because we're only as good as the communities we serve.
Well, that's actually a good lead into what I wanted to ask next is I think it is up to all of us and everyone in this room, like we do have to work together, right? To make this a community where people want to move and they feel like they can thrive. And I'd be curious to know from your perspective and y'all's background, what do you think the key issues today are where we need to get the policymakers, the businesses, our community influencers, and all the different stakeholders on the same page to ensure that Nashville does continue to be successful and be a place that people want to move?
You guys want the newest guy to answer that question?
Fresh perspective.
I think the interest rates and consumer spending, I think I look at that as short term and things that we'll get through. Nashville will get through better than most. But being somebody that was born and raised here, I think to me, the longer term challenge we've got to get a handle on is just how do we handle all this growth? It's fantastic, but from an infrastructure standpoint, mass transit standpoint, we've got to start thinking about that yesterday. Because if we're not careful, what we don't want to do is be a city that gets affiliated with certain monikers like Chicago. You think of crime, Atlanta, you think of crime, New Orleans, now you think of trash, Austin, you think of a homeless problem, which started with an affordable housing problem. So we need to be thinking about those things and try to stay out in front of it best we can. But as a longtime resident, that's what I worry about most.
I think you're spot on, but I think this transit and housing, is great if you have existing homes, but the housing market in Nashville is unbelievable. And it's just something that the general working wage person, they've just been pushed out of the market and they're being pushed further out. And the problem is when that happens, who's going to be at the hotels, who's going to do all that work if they can't get back? So either you got to have housing close that's affordable, that's decent, or you got to figure out how to have that commute better, and that traffic in the morning is not pretty on the interstate and where you go. So that's a big dynamic, but that's a dynamic a lot of cities have, but that's something Nashville's got to do. And, you know, you got to look at the growth. It's not going to stop. You know, developers, they're going to keep developing until the occupancy gets down to 80 or less. They're going to keep developing. And that's just how it goes. And so Nashville is going to continue to grow. And, you know, you got this indoor arena for the Titans. I mean, what that does for the city, now you become a top tier city just across the board, because now you can do Super Bowl, you can do the Final Four. It's nothing Nashville won't be able to do because all the hotel structures in place. You can host any event that you want.
Are you putting your name on that building?
I will finance it, but I'm not putting my name on it.
Anytime I get a mic and anyone who's listening, I just say I want more sidewalks, right? So we can be more walkable. But I heard that on the previous panel, so I'm excited about that. I think we are at time, but is there anything, just final thoughts that you would want to share with this group today?
I think my peer said it, but I think we really got to work on this shared prosperity and workforce development. We've got people that we need here in our communities that need to share in this, and we have a responsibility as bankers, along with all of us in this room to do that, along with the affordability, the infrastructure, all of the other items that are there. So,
Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you for having us.
Let's give another round of applause for panel 2. And that brings us to our third and final panel. But before I introduce them, I'd just like to remind everyone that at the end of the event, we will distribute for the very first time the printed copies of our second annual report of Invest Nashville, which you can also access for free today by signing up on our website. If you see these little stands on your table, those little QR codes will get you free access as well. With that, I am pleased to announce our third panel, A Complete Ecosystem, How Healthcare and Higher Ed Drive Economic Development Across Nashville and Provide a Unique Opportunity for Regional Growth. Moderating today's panel is Dr. Jenny Sauls, Director for the School of Nursing of Middle Tennessee State University. If the moderator and panelists can please join us up here on stage and give them a round of applause as they come up.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for having us today, and welcome to the panel members. I certainly did enjoy that last conversation about our financial structure right now and the challenges that are facing us. So I'd like to introduce our panel members. Mr. Chris Sterling, CEO and CFO of the Surgical Clinic. Thank you, Chris. Dr. Greg Jones, President of Belmont University. Thank you, Dr. Jones. Dr. Joseph Webb, CEO of Nashville General Hospital. Thank you for being with us. And Dr. Shanna Jackson, President of Nashville State Community College. Thank you guys for being here this morning. As we think about the relationship of higher education and healthcare, looking back just a little bit, I have some questions for all of you, and then I have some specific questions for each of you. So in thinking about how Nashville enjoyed the before Nashville enjoyed the economic diversification that we currently see, it was and still is a global healthcare hub with a number of high-quality educational institutions around the region. So how will both of these sectors continue to play a critical role in the region's economic development, both supporting new industries and in their own right? Okay, Chris, looks like you're it.
Start one. And I just want to say I'm really honored to be a part of this panel. I'm usually surrounded by doctors, and that hasn't changed today. So, yeah, I think you're right. Nashville does have a long history in education with wonderful institutions that are represented up here, some that aren't, and a long history we've talked about in healthcare. And I think as it continues to evolve, we need more healthcare professionals. We need nurses, we need medical assistants, we need physicians for sure. So I think, you'll continue to see that evolve, that piece of it. And as, another part of it is as healthcare continues to evolve in general, the industry, especially the technology side of it, I think we'll see more programs revolve around, training those kinds of specialties and those kinds of employees. And how do we make our healthcare system work better for us? How do we make it more efficient? So I'm really excited to see those kind of things.
There is some excitement going on.
Good morning. I attended Tennessee State University back in the day, and at that time, the music industry was what you thought of when you thought of Nashville. And now we understand that the healthcare industry is somewhere 5 to 6 times the size of the music industry. That's phenomenal. And I see it as a symbiotic relationship between the two. Back in graduate school, we learned about and being trained to be healthcare leaders. We learned about education. We had to study that because of the closeness in the relationship. But I see it as a mutual feeder. The educational system feeds the healthcare system with well-trained individuals, and the healthcare system feeds the educational system with opportunities and jobs. So that symbiotic relationship will continue to grow and prosper, I believe.
We certainly can't have one without the other. That's true.
I think there are huge intersections, and it's part of the dynamism of Nashville. If you look at the HCA family tree of entrepreneurial ventures that started in Nashville, it's broader than traditional physicians, nurses. It's a lot of the kind of entrepreneurial spirit that I think characterizes Nashville. And so I think of education, I think of healthcare, and I also think of that entrepreneurial mindset, that entrepreneurial spirit. And part of what's characterized Nashville is being a leader in anticipating where healthcare is going. We've clearly got workforce issues and the need of more people, as Chris was talking about, and addressing some of the equity issues in how the health of our population in the Metro Nashville area. And that's something where education, healthcare, and entrepreneurship can intersect as technology comes in to a greater role in business. It's a chance for Nashville to build off the kind of intersections and great relationships that we have. We're starting a new College of Medicine that pending accreditation will start new medical education in the summer of 2024, building on our nursing and health sciences programs, as well as our College of Pharmacy, all of those workforce dynamics. And, what we need is the kind of collaboration that exists all across the board. Nashville State plays a really key role in equipping people across the healthcare work. And so Shauna and I have been talking about how to partner in deeper ways to address those workforce issues. If we don't do this in a way that's focused on the future, we're going to find ourselves regressing. It'll have impact not only on our educational institutions, on the healthcare that places like Nashville General and others provide. It'll also affect our overall economy and the well-being of the region.
And I agree with everything that's been said. It's really a new opportunity, I think, to help our local talent get on a clear pathway to jobs they don't even know about, really, and to make it very clear that there are a lot of entry-level positions for which Nashville State may prepare students for, or you have specialized workforce training, but there's a pathway. in the healthcare industry that isn't as clear as you might think it is. And so how do we simplify that for the folks that are looking for great careers and great organizations to work for when really all they know are doctors and nurses, and they don't know the diversity of the fields that they're in. So I think, you know, we're interconnected and always will be. Workforce is certainly an issue that I'm sure we're going to talk more about today, but just the overall health of our communities is an education piece as well, and helping them to understand what we need to do to take care of one another so that we can have long, sustainable lives.
Very insightful comments. Thank you. I have one more question for all of you. So in looking back over the last few years, I think we'd all agree there's been some significant disruptions in the way we operate. So as you start to look at and tackle the challenges of your respective industries, how is it that your work is being carried out across Nashville and Middle Tennessee in response to those challenges? And what are the biggest changes you've made in your respective industries in response to the challenges that we faced in moving forward successfully?
I can go first this time. I think that we are still trying to navigate this new normal. It keeps changing. So I don't know that we've arrived at the new normal yet. Nashville State really was impacted by COVID, and not just student enrollment, which definitely was a hardship, but just by the changes that we needed to make and how people teach, how we interact with each other, this whole virtual workforce that we're still trying to figure out. And I think some of the good things that came was really the innovation that took place, that we had to move quickly. And if you know higher ed, that's not necessarily what we're known to do, although we're working to change that, to a virtual environment, to a different way of learning. And so what I really see is that we are blurring the lines. And often on the higher ed side, we talk about the credit side of the house, which is degree programs, technical certificates, pathways to great institutions like Belmont, or putting people into work, or the workforce side of the house, which is what we refer to sometimes as non-credit, where it's for basic skills or specific training or customized training. We're blurring the lines because employers need employees today, not 2 years from now, not 4 years from now. And at Nashville State, we really actually made a realignment and put our workforce division under our academic affairs so that they were connected. Everything we do at Nashville State is workforce development. And we wanted everyone at the organization to understand that. Also, the unique partnerships. Belmont has been an exceptional partner with Nashville State. As we're talking about healthcare, we have an articulation agreement where they save 16 seats in their nursing program for our students, and we're building stronger relationships. We were already focused on holistically supporting students, but I think not that we're post-pandemic, I think we're still coming out of it, even more strengthening the supports so that students can not just access education and training that you want them to have, but they can complete it. So there's a lot of innovation and a lot of collaboration all across higher education and with our partners to redesign the system. Because if we're really candid, it hasn't worked that well for students or for employers for a while. And so we're very interested at Nashville State, and I mean, we've got great partners on this panel to redesign the system so that it actually works.
I'll follow up on what Shauna said. And when she mentioned higher education is not always nimble, that's an understatement. I say, you know, much of higher education across the US and in Western Europe is preparing for 1995 in case it comes back again. And so, you know, the reality of these multiple disruptions that we've had, it's not only COVID, it's the racial injustice, economic disruptions, it's mental health challenges. It's happening on so many different fronts that it's really challenging. And I think Shauna pointed to something really crucial, particularly when we think about the healthcare workforce. If you look at the physician shortage that's going to occur over the next decade, the nursing shortage that already exists and is going to intensify, as well as all the other kinds of roles of medical assistants and physical therapists, just run down the list. There's no way that we're going to be able to address that adequately only through long-term 4, 6, 8-year programs in some of these areas. And so we've got to be doing educational innovation, finding new pathways. Over the last 6 months, I created a whole area just called educational innovation, looking at more of those kind of new pathways. And that's part of what we talk about is how do we develop that? I want to help Nashville State develop pathways for people who will never come to Belmont, but will get good jobs, because that's how people are going to flourish. And we're going to need to develop those new pathways of educational innovation. We also have a whole new area that Josh Yates is leading called the Belmont Innovation Labs that are designed to incubate ideas and to work with partners. And part of the key aspect of dealing with the disruptions is also listening to our partners in industry, people who actually run hospitals and dealing at community clinics and places like Siloam, and say, what are you experiencing both with your workforce as well as with your patients, and how those dynamics, when I talked to Morgan Wills at Siloam, and he talks about dealing with immigrants and refugees that speak 78 different languages. Well, that requires an intercultural competence from our workforce that we've got to be responsive to. And so working in those sorts of ways, it's going to require intrinsic partnerships between education, healthcare, business, government, all of the different sectors, intrinsic partnerships rather than kind of transactional relationships to address the needs that we're facing with disruption.
So I'm going to kind of redirect us a little bit more towards healthcare and how the disruption that we're referring to could largely be summarized under COVID. And we saw something in our community. I call it the unintended innovation. We learned how to work from home. We learned that we didn't have to always get in the same room to meet. We could meet virtually. So it was an innovative period that has built sustaining practices for us. But we also saw a very disproportionate impact on marginalized populations, people of color, the mortality rate. And what it did was it just exacerbated what already exists. We know that there are health inequities, and we know when inequities happen, there is an undesirable outcome. And so one of the things that we're doing at Nashville General is we're focusing on risk stratification and dealing with that high risk population, because it is a way of, as the essential hospital for the city, the public hospital for the city, it is a way of controlling the cost, keeping individuals well, keeping them healthy, keeping them educated. And so we target the population through our risk stratification. And then we educate those that are dealing with those chronic conditions such as diabetes, hypertension, congestive heart failure, COPD. We target those individuals because the science shows that anywhere from 6 to 7% of your population will usually drive 60 to 70% of your cost. So if you can get that population under control by being proactive, reaching out to them, keeping them healthy, educating them on their conditions, because I always say the best healthcare you're ever going to get is the healthcare that you administer to yourself, because that's where you spend most of your time, is at home and not in a hospital or in a healthcare setting. So I think we learned a lot through that disruption that's going to sustain and remain with us for a long time. And I think we're better off for having done that. We just have to respond in a way that is in the best interest of the entire community.
I don't know if it's on purpose. Sorry, I don't know if it's on purpose, but we have the educational side there and the healthcare side here. I found myself in 2019, early 2020. I was going into my third year of being the CEO of a group of almost 40 surgeons. We were faced with, the most challenging healthcare crisis that we've ever seen in my lifetime. And to say that was a difficult situation is to put it mildly. We learned fast, and we reacted. I was very proud of the way that we handled it, and our staff I think when we're looking at how we've changed from then, there are a couple of different areas where we focus. One, administrative. I'm lucky to have most of my team here, and I'm so thankful for them because we had to learn how to be more efficient, how to work more proactively, handle our responsibilities in different ways. And work from home was a lot of that. But also, I think, we tried to find people that were better suited for what we needed. And that was kind of a natural course of going through, filling positions as there's turnover, and everybody's had turnover, looking for different things and what we need out of the employees if they're doing the job of what we need. On the other side, the clinical side, again, we're a group of surgeons. I don't really want a whole lot to change. We went through a period where, you're trying to maybe have minimal contact with our patients because you're worried about spreading a disease that you may or may not know that a patient or you may have. But at the core part of our business is patient care. And I strongly believe that an important piece of that is contact with the patient, human contact with the patient, spending time with the patient. And again, when we usually see people, it's not a really good day in their lives. They're seeing us because, they're going to have to go have an operation, have surgery. And most people are pretty scared of that. So, it's important for us to have that human contact and interaction to put patients at ease, to let them know what's going to happen, what's going on. They're going to be okay. And that's one thing I want to get back to where we were before. And for the most part, we have. So that's kind of how we would.
Yes, I think the pandemic sort of separated us all from our major constituent. In other words, it separated education from its students by going to the virtual world, and it separated healthcare organizations from their patients. So it really did change the way we look at things a lot and made things more challenging for us. But I think everybody can tell from the conversation we're having up here that this adversity probably did actually end up bringing out the best in us and challenging us to look for new and better ways to do things. And I think we've discovered that. And I think we will continue to use some of the changes moving forward to do things better. So.
I will add though that I'm tired of Zoom and I'm tired of teleconferences. And I'm much happier to be in-person meetings now and this in person. And I'm much more happy that that's happening.
Yeah, it really face to face is really the best. I have to say I agree with that as well. So so we've been talking a little bit about the past and how that's impacted us. So in looking at the current landscape, this is another question for all of you. So I think we all know that Middle Tennessee has long maintained an educational ecosystem that has allowed residents and employers alike the ability to study and recruit locally. So how has the recent influx of new employers and the growth of ones who are already established created a heightened demand or an increase in demand for talent? And how has that growth prompted a change in what may be expected when it comes to the quality of our local talent?
I guess it's my turn to start this one. I think what we've seen anyway is as our economy has grown, as more opportunity is created, new businesses, new industries move to Nashville, we don't see in that area a lot of competition for what we do, but we see competition for talent, maybe talent choosing to go into another industry other than healthcare. There are a lot more options, especially for local kids or local graduates that want to stay in Nashville. And I think we've already heard a lot today about how great Nashville is, and I agree. I'm not a native Nashvilleian. I've been here about 22 years, so this is home now. But I think we all agree how great the city is, and people want to stay here. It just creates more competition for really talented, educated, intelligent people that may be choosing a different industry over ours. And we want those people working in our industry. We need innovation and we need ideas and we need smart people in healthcare to help us solve the problems that we have. And it makes that a little more difficult.
Yes.
I think it's been through more of a natural transition of demand for one feeding the other. We at Nashville General have one of the oldest health sciences programs in the state. Our director of that program is right here at our table, Craig Shepard. We've seen growth in that area. We're expecting that to continue. And as we focus on building a new hospital, we expect to see the actual physical attributes to that expand. So it will become even more, have more of an impact in the community. You know, ecosystems tend to self-correct. If it's truly an ecosystem, you really don't have to worry about artificially impacting it, because it's either going to be one where there is both all hosts will mutually benefit, or it can have some type of parasitic relationship where one does well, the other one doesn't. But it is still a part of the ecosystem, and that's what makes it work. And it will survive until there is some tampering with that ecosystem that causes it to do otherwise. So I think as long as we allow the system, and we're putting a lot of resources into education, and countries across the world have recognized that if you want to grow the economy and the well-being of your country, you really have to focus on investing in education. So, I mean, that's something that goes without saying in Nashville. It's always, since I've been around Nashville for a lot of years, it's always focused on higher education, and it's obviously served the city very well.
I distinguish several areas where I think we need to work together. We need to do things internally, and we're, starting a College of Medicine in 2024. Faculty and staff are already on board, many of them, and will continue to grow. We want to expand health sciences and nursing, pharmacy, so that we can help meet some of this demand. We can't do it alone. It's going to require partnerships. Some of that is partnerships with other organizations like those up here. And part of that is a broader ecosystem that I'll come back to at the end. But I would say that we also have to be paying attention to our K-12 education. I said that's our supply chain, and we've got to have that be really strong going forward. If you look at the number of jobs that are going to be created in Nashville over the next 5 years, it's at a much higher pace than it has been over the last decade or 25 years. We can't import all that talent. We shouldn't import all that talent. We need to be growing our own and equipping people who are growing, and that means attending to dynamics of education and how that works. And that's part of the pathways for people to succeed, to go from high school to Nashville State, not just a four-year education, or other kinds of opportunities and training programs that can equip the people for those opportunities. I'd say the last thing that we really have to attend to, and why those partnerships are essential, is that larger ecosystem. It's not only whether people come to Belmont or Vanderbilt or Lipscomb or Trevecca or Tennessee State or Fisk or anywhere else, or Nashville State or any of our colleges, or what they're going to do locally. We're also competing against Austin and Charlotte and New York and other cities. And I want Nashville to be the best ecosystem for education, healthcare, business more generally. And that means we've got to be pulling together, because if we have those intrinsic relationships, we're more likely to be dynamic and entrepreneurial and see the kind of transformation that would really enable everybody in Nashville to flourish.
And my lens is maybe a little different, because we are a community college. We serve 7 counties, and we are here for the local community. So we're not recruiting out-of-state students. We are certainly serving the ones that live here. I moved to Nashville in the 90s to work for the Pillsbury Company. Never thought I'd be in higher ed, but that's a whole different story. And Nashville looks so different now. And really, I would say the last 5 to 10 years, we've been using the strategy of importing talent into the region. And it's just not sustainable. You can't keep bringing in most of your talent from outside for the high wage, high demand jobs. And so we have to grow our own. We can look at data. We are leaving communities. We are leaving group of people behind. And so that's your local talent. There are plenty of people out there that are not accessing post-secondary opportunities or any kind of training beyond high school. And so they're not prepared for the jobs that are there. And I think that that is what we need to focus on. We know where the gaps are and we know where the people are. So part of what Nashville State is doing, and I know Belmont is doing the same thing, is we're going to take the college to the community. And we're going to go into the promise zone areas, our federally designated areas, the underserved, because we're always asking people to come to us. And the one thing that is like my banner is access to education isn't enough. We have Tennessee Promise, we have Tennessee Reconnect. Shouldn't people be flooding into your institution? And they're not, because they don't have transportation, they have childcare issues, they have to work. And going to school while working, and many of you have probably done that, is hard. And if you're parenting, it's even more challenging. So I think this whole idea of the local talent, we have to rethink and not set the same expectations that I had. I knew I was going to college. That's not everyone's story. They're not all supported. And so I think this influx of wonderful opportunities, we have to balance that with making sure the local talent, the kids coming out of metro schools, the kids in Clarksville, the kids in other areas have the same opportunity to get access and completion of the training and the experiences so they can get the wonderful jobs that are available.
Absolutely. That's very insightful from each of you. I will say that we have never struggled before at MTSU to recruit nursing students. But since COVID, we have been struggling, as have most other programs in the state. Most of our students live in the state. Most of our students, probably 90%, remain in the state, go to work in the state. We like that. We want to be educating our students for employers in Tennessee. But I will say, just in the last 6 to 9 months, I've had Cleveland Clinic recruiting our graduates, Maine recruiting our graduates, Mayo Clinic recruiting our graduates, Children's Hospital in Atlanta recruiting our graduates. So we really want our students to stay in the area. That's
a broader entrepreneurship question of, are we creating communities and neighborhoods where people want to live? And are we working together?
Yes.
And I would say one of the things we have to attend to is also the rural areas around our cities, because if the rural areas aren't discovering new life and healthy ways to live in places that are desirable, then it's going to be even harder for us to retain the top talent that's homegrown.
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct. So now a question for individuals. So Chris, in your interview with Invest, you spoke toward the interoperability of data systems across healthcare networks and trickle-down impacts on the cost and coordination between providers, insurers, and hospitals. Having said that, are there ways that Nashville, with its robust healthcare ecosystem, can help lead in formalizing and consolidating these systems so that it benefits all of the parties involved?
So a little bit of background on that comment. Again, we're a group of surgeons, so we have a lot of partners that we work with, and we're hopefully very soon going to be partnering with Dr. Webb here. Very happy about that. So we work with hospitals, we work with anesthesia groups, we work with other physicians that refer us patients, or we refer patients back to them, like oncologists. We work with insurers. They're obviously big parts of what we do. Each of these parties generally has a different information system. You have a medical record at the hospital. The anesthesia group, most of them will have a medical record on you. We will have a medical record for you. Your insurance company certainly has your medical information. What we do a really poor job of is communicating among all these parties what needs to be known. Now, my idea in a utopian world is, there's one record system that we all have access to. So when my surgeon is seeing a new patient in clinic, they can look up the patient and see, okay, well, they had this procedure at Nashville General last year. 6 years ago, they had this procedure at St. Thomas West. Oh, they've seen, these primary care physicians, and get a whole picture. We don't have that right now. And there are a lot of roadblocks to that. I think if that problem is going to be solved, and we're working towards it. There are some clearinghouses where we'll take our EMR data and share it across other partners, but it's certainly not holistic in any way. I think if that problem can be solved, I think there's enough talent and brain power and just smart people in Nashville to do it. So many people are moving here now, and most of those people are young, they're professionals, they're intelligent, they're driven, they're successful for the most part. So I'm really interested to see, and I said in the magazine, I think I'm really interested to see the innovation in healthcare technology and how we can solve some of those interoperability problems and inefficiencies going forward, because healthcare, we all know, is getting more expensive. The cost of healthcare is a problem, and it's not just a problem for patients, it's a problem for providers. As we see our costs every year ticking up and up and up, and for the most part, our reimbursements from Medicare or health insurers or whatever is not going up at the same rate. It's staying level. In some cases with Medicare, it's going down. That's a problem. At some point, those lines get close to converging, and that creates a real issue. So we need more efficient ways to do things. We need more efficient ways to work with our partners, how to lower the cost of healthcare. And I think, I don't think the cost of where we're seeing patients, real estate, we've talked about that, that's not getting any cheaper. The cost of our staff and people that we need to take care of our patients isn't getting any cheaper. So we have to find more efficiencies and other ways to make it make sense.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Okay, I'm being given the wrap-up sign. So we had a lot to say today.
We're
So
the last panel. Can't we go a little long? You don't have anything to do you? You don't have anything to do you?
they're all going, yes, we do, probably. So Dr. Webb, just briefly, how do you think healthcare and higher education represent a complete ecosystem? And you've already alluded to this a little bit, driving the economic development and unique opportunities across Nashville.
As I said before, I think it's a symbiotic relationship. One feeds the other, and it's almost as perfect as you can get with an ecosystem. And as I stated, there's no parasitic effect here, so one doesn't harm the other. It is absolutely mutually beneficial. And it wasn't until healthcare really became such a prominent part of the landscape in Nashville and the economic system here that it really started to show itself just how effective it is. And I would believe that it is certainly the envy of a lot of cities that would love to see this type of dual economy driving the actual overall activities and the growth and development in the city. And you can actually say that with those two industries, that's what's fueling a lot of this ancillary growth that we're seeing.
Thank you for those comments. Dr. Jones, just briefly, we've been talking about opportunities for growth. So what do you see as issues that might impede our current momentum in moving forward?
I think we need a shared vision of where we want Nashville to go. I've been in lots of meetings where I hear we don't want to become Atlanta. And usually I think that's around transportation dynamics, but we need to not just know where we don't want to go, we need to know where we do want to go. And that's going to require us working together. I think it's going to require what's one of our strategic pathways we call an integrative vision of health and well-being for all. And that means, really looking at some of the health inequities in our city, looking at the broader region, and making sure we're working together, helping to grow that homegrown talent, building stronger networks, and creating the multiplier effects. If we don't do that, we're going to find ourselves trying to we'll treat some of these issues as if they're hard problems rather than complex problems. One of the things I've learned, is if you don't have childcare, it's going to really affect whether people can show up to class and get a degree and flourish. If you don't have sidewalks, when you think about hypertension, our Belmont Data Collaborative worked with Nashville Health and identified that hypertension is highest in this region in neighborhoods where they don't have grocery stores and sidewalks. So your doctor tells you, you got hypertension, you need to eat healthier and you need to walk more. Not likely if you're in a neighborhood that doesn't have that kind of access. So it's going to require us working together with a long view of where we want to go, with a broad vision of what it takes for all of us to flourish. Nashville's a much healthier environment, and than in lots of places I've seen and lived. And what I would just say is what my colleague Charlie Apigian noted about Nashville is it's a great place for people to get along. It's harder to get stuff done. And what he means by that is we all say, yep, that's a problem. And then we wait for somebody else to do something. And he said, what we need are radical champions to get stuff done. And so I'd urge all of us to find ways to work on things and be a radical champion. Say, we're going to take this on and hope others will join. And that's how we're going to solve the problem.
Thank you for those comments. Dr. Jackson, quickly, where would you like to see more support on the part of our local stakeholders on tackling these issues?
Just what he said. We need to get moving. We need leaders that aren't going to just talk about it, but be about action. And I think there are some very real solutions out there that we just need to find that champion. I know Belmont is a leader. I mean, Greg is doing amazing things over there. Nashville State is committed to being a national leader in achieving equitable outcomes for our diverse community of learners. And I want you to think of Nashville State as your workforce solution partner. But there are issues beyond the college with transportation and childcare that we can't tackle alone. And so it is going to take those strong champions to gather the right voices in the room to not just discuss what it is we need to do, but to move to action.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all the panel members for your contributions to the conversation today. And thank you guys for coming out to listen.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Let's give our last panel a round of applause. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of our event, but I have one more person to introduce to close us out, and that's our own Shane Collins. Many of you know him from doing the Invest Nashville report the past couple of years. He is a superstar all around, and I'm so proud of the work that he's done here in Nashville for us. He's incredibly charismatic and just a wonderful person to connect all these wonderful people that I see in front of me today. So Shane, please close us out.
Hello again. Thank you, everyone. And again, thank you to our third panel. And as a hub for both healthcare and higher education, it's just really great to hear how those two sectors are working together to drive Middle Tennessee forward. But I do want to give a special shout out again to the Nashville Predators and Bridgestone Arena. It was great to work with Sean Henry, Bill Wickett, and their team. And we enjoyed having Sean kick us off today with his trademark energy. But no, throughout my time of meeting with hundreds of leaders in Nashville and Middle Tennessee, I'm always just struck by that mantra of a rising tide lifts all boats. I think we had a call to action here with that third panel, but I think it's really evidenced here by the diverse group of leaders that we have in the room, from Clarksville, Montgomery to Murray, from Putnam to Sumner. It's just a great, great opportunity to get everybody in one room to talk about not only the challenges, but those opportunities that face this region. I think this speaks to the fact that the work that we do, sharing business intelligence, there's a true appetite for that. And it's just a pleasure and a real passion project for myself and my entire team to put this together. So in closing, I just want to thank our incredible sponsors. To our gold sponsors, Nashville General Hospital and Truist, to our silver sponsors, Regions Bank and the City Living Group, To our bronze sponsors, Fifth Third Bank, Middle Tennessee Electric, and the Housing Fund. And to our honored sponsors, the Nashville Predators Bridgestone Arena, the Grand Hyatt Nashville, and Tennessee Tech University. Please make sure to grab your complimentary copy of Invest Nashville on your way out. We'll be in touch with all of you, so respond to your emails and calls when I call you for another interview. And no, feel free to mingle a bit. I know we still got some stuff in the back, and I don't think Sean is kicking us out right away. But thank you all for being here and supporting Invest Nashville 2023.
So.
Down, simmer down. They say we're still young now to amount to anything else. Look around, we work too damn hard for this just to give it up now. If you don't swim, you'll drown. But don't move, honey. Standing there in my universe, and I'm so sad.